Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Tuesday morning for Market Rebellion. And let me tell you something. Yesterday, again, we had markets that were definitely shifting and moving. And the reason that volatility index has kind of been hanging in there, we've been talking about 20. We're going to definitely hit that 20 level and talk about what's happening today. But if we go back to yesterday, we were trading somewhere in the 19s. You look at what's going on, it makes a lot of sense. We had a lot of movement. And when you look at where we started off the day with the Dow, everything seemed to be in decent shape. Then we had this rapid flip and sell-off midday, and then just an acceleration throughout the rest of the day to the close, where we finished down about 100 points. We were up over 200 points early, only to finish down 100 points on the Dow. Now, the NASDAQ a little bit different, but the NASDAQ kind of shifted and moved and moved around as well. Midday, just like the Dow itself, shifted around, some pullbacks, and over a period of just 30, 40 minutes, we saw some definite shifts, and the market actually finished. I called it flat initially, but actually it finished up about 9 points. So we'll give you the 9 points with the NASDAQ on that move. So crude oil definitely getting smacked right across the cheek, down about 3%, down trading somewhere around 71.5. It's going lower today. The 10-year back below 120. So that's something that we were talking about yesterday. Some of the oddities of the early part of the session when we were up a couple of 100 points, and we were looking at the 10-year, but the financials were trading just fine. Eventually they caught up, and then they started to push to the downside. Bitcoin nearing that 39,000 level after over the weekend being up and over that 40,000 level, 42,000, I believe. But yesterday it was materials, it was industrials, it was energy, all getting a little bit of a smackdown to the downside. But the standout were the semiconductors. And you take a look at the interesting thing was you're looking at what's going on with tech, and tech had a little bit of pressure, not a lot of pressure, but a little bit of pressure to the downside. But then you look over at the semiconductors, and they were absolutely off to the races, specifically looking at AMD. We talked about some of the option activity that we had seen in there. By the way, we might be seeing even more today, but that was a stock that absolutely took off once again. Hit 110, pulled back a little bit, closed right around 108. But we also had onsemi, which we talked about yesterday as well, but hit up over 45, closed a little bit below that level, but still up about 12% on the day. That's a pretty significant move. Microchip, another one of those names. That's a name that hit 151, then did pull back a little bit, but had a strong day. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what was really shifting around. And when you look at the NASDAQ, certainly the semiconductors stand out, and the performance from many of the names, I just highlighted a few, but for many of the names, definitely the standout for the day. So today we come in, we're looking at the markets. Earnings season continues to move on, but we look at the markets, we're up about 85 points. Everything feels a little bit better in the Dow, the NASDAQ up about 20 points or so. We opened up about exactly those levels. Started to come back. We were up about 50 points. We got flat on the NASDAQ. Next thing we know, we look, and at 30 minutes into the day, we're down 100 points. And it's like, hey, what in the world is going on here? And the NASDAQ started to accelerate to the downside, down about 40 points. NASDAQ still struggling. It was, last I looked, down about 35 points. But you look at that Dow, bang, it was up 50 points just at the bottom of the hour. So the movements that we are seeing definitely justify what we are seeing when I talk about the volatility index. Yeah, that volatility index, you look at that VIX, we started off the day in the 19s. We very rapidly accelerated into the 20s, and that's where we were, at least last I looked. We were trading above 20. Now, sustainability. We've talked about this many, many times. We get up and over 20. Will we be sustained up here? Are the markets going to continue to shift around? It seems to me that at some point we will see these volatility levels not just be over 20, but maybe even accelerate a little bit more. Why do I say that? The VXX paper from yesterday, the option paper that we were seeing in the VXX, stood out for me. And they were buying the shorter dated August 38 calls, 19,000 of those in the VXX. That's that short-term VIX future. So very interesting to see that. Doesn't mean we absolutely have to see volatility fly to the upside, but certainly we are seeing some dollars put into play looking for some kind of a move short term to the upside in the volatility index. And I'm not sure 20 is what they were looking at. I think they're looking at higher levels than that. And that certainly could be something and should be something we'll be keeping a very close eye on. We take a look over crude. We actually dropped below 70 today. I'm not sure exactly where it is right now, but we dropped below 70. That's why we were seeing a little bit of pressure on the markets as well. The 10-year still was down underneath that 1.2 level. So that's something that stands out, obviously having a little bit of an impact. The interesting thing early on was there wasn't really a single sector that was up or down anything more than 0.5%. So a fairly tight from that aspect, but certainly seeing some movement across the general side of things when we're looking at the Dow, we're looking at the NASDAQ, we're looking at the S&P. So I said it was earnings season and it continues to roll on. How about these numbers from Under Armour? Absolutely extraordinary. They beat on the top and the bottom, crushed those earnings numbers, raised their forecast. That stock was up about 4%. That's also a name that we've had time and time again. I think I highlighted this on the halftime report not too terribly long ago, seeing a lot of activity in Under Armour looking for a move to the upside. It was there today, well over $22 a share. Clorox, on the other hand, getting slapped across the face. They missed on the top, they missed on the bottom. That's enough to push you to the downside for sure. And it was down, last I looked, about 11%. So a little bit of a shift on what's going on in earnings. Marriott, those numbers actually look pretty strong. Those earnings numbers were extraordinary, and the revenue doubled year over year. But that stock was down. A lot of different of the reopened stocks were something that was becoming part of the focus today as people get a little bit more and more concerned. It's been in the background. The variant, of course, talked about, but certain days it seems like it becomes a total focus, and certain days they just completely lose sight of it. But the Delta variant certainly moving things around a little bit in terms of the opening stocks and all the rest of it. Ralph Lauren, what else can you say? Sales up 182%. That stock, last I looked, was up about 8%, a monstrous move to the upside. What's not doing very well, getting hit pretty substantially, again, those Chinese names, NetEase, JD, Baidu, Trip.com. You go through Pinduoduo, all of those names getting smacked to the downside today as well, just so you're aware of what's sort of shifting around within the markets. And that's something that definitely stood out for me. So I'm going to get you a couple of unusuals, and then I got a double-double today. Yeah, I love to call that the double-double animal style. I'll be doing the noon show, the halftime report with Scott and the gang. I'll also be joining Melissa Lee later on for Fast Money as well. So busy afternoon for me. NVDA, this is pretty interesting. Stock was trading just above 200 a share. We had a buyer of 10,000 of, we actually get a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but a little extra time, the August 13 expiring. So we got this week and next for these calls, the 205 calls, 10,000 of those traded at about 245 all the way up to about 385 for those calls. I did see the stock pull back a little bit off of that 200.5 where it was trading. I saw it get into the 199s. I'm not sure where it is right now, but that's a pretty interesting buyer there, a very light, large buyer. That's a real dollar-wise, that's a very expensive trade that we're talking about. Secondly, I'm going to give you an energy stock. Yes, despite the fact that we see energy going to the downside, maybe somebody thinks that there's a possibility that we start to see energy maybe make a turn and burn back to the upside, but buying a little bit of time as well. Selling out of August, these are Apache, APA. Selling out of August, those calls at the 20 strike, and then still moving into September on these 20 calls, trading for about 80 cents. So pretty aggressive buy there, looking for a nice move to the upside. That stock was trading just a little bit above 18, about 18.17, 18.15, somewhere in that ballpark. But then that's where we saw that buying and selling of those August calls and rolling them up into September. Buying a little bit of time. Same strike, but buying a little bit of extra time for the move up towards 20. So we'll see if that plays out as well. Folks, I will see you on the halftime report. I look forward to that as well. NVIDIA, pretty interesting. We got a lot of different other things that are starting to hit right now, just bang, 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 bang. I'll be covering some of that when we get on to the halftime report itself. Folks, have a great day of trading.